All right, let's do our overlapping owls or overlapping photos. You gotta get your own photos. Um, so it says to accomplish this, you need another div to set a context in and a div, add a div, and give it a class of context. Right. So we're in our fourth container here. So I'm gonna give it a div block, and I'm gonna call this context2, just in case again if I have it somewhere else. Add a width of 600 and a height of 600 to your context div and center it. So that's simple enough. 600 pixels, 600 pixels. Go up here and just give it the centering, and there it is. It's centered and wonderful. Prep 2 square images, 400 by 400 pixels. Place the 2 images inside the content div and make each 400 and 400 pixels. Now they'll be 400 and 400 pixels by default, but we should just make sure. So let's get, nope, I already have the images loaded, right? So they're right in here. And I have a great horned owl. And I'm gonna ignore these settings right here, and I'll set them over here. And I'm going to have a barn owl, and I'll throw the barn owl in context, right? And it'll just kind of go right under it. And because we've kept it to 600 pixels, it's just overflow being seen. And I'm going to go over here and just, I'm going to give these some kind of a tag just in case. Owls2, right? And I'll give this one also in owls2. And now, so that they both get applied, this 400 pixels by 400 pixels. There we go. Okay, so now they're both 400 pixels by 400 pixels, so they were coming in a little big. And so make it so that the two images overlap as shown. Hint, there's 200 pixels of overlap, right? So what are the steps to do this? Well, first I know I need to use absolute positioning, right? I'm taking this owl and moving him over here. I've set up this 600 pixels. So I want to grab my context div, and I want to first give it a position of relative, right? Because, well, actually, let's see what happens if I don't give it a position of relative. So I'm going to grab my owl, I'm going to give it a combo class and call it barn owl 2. And I'm going to set that to absolute. And so now it's still staying in there. So that tells me that something in here already has a context of relative that Webflow is doing, but let's see to make sure it's right. So we're going to, what do we say? There's 200 pixels overlap. So that basically means that it has to be, since it's 400, it needs to be, right, top 200 pixels, left 200 pixels. Uh-oh, now we see the big problem here. Look at them up there. There's an owl up high. No, we don't want that, right? We didn't set a context. And so probably the only thing is this must be context to the body. So we need to get our context to and set that to relative. And now our owl comes down to where it belongs. Now we need to make it smaller for landscape phones and smaller. So still fine. Right there is where we need to change it. And so because I was smart enough to put this class on here, I can just change this once. 200 pixels, 200 pixels. And the context is changing, right? So the context has to change to 300 pixels by 300 pixels. And now our owl just needs to be moved 100 pixels to the left, right? So where is that at? Here it is right here. So it's at 100 and 100. And there it is. We've got overlapping owls, and they work in all the sizes and contexts. One thing that's been bothering me is this thing being having transparency, because I don't want to see that stuff behind there. So if you need to change transparency, right, you just drag that over, and there it is. And that's it. That is our overlapping images part.